I got pregnant again, and I told my 18-year-old son he has to work overtime because the baby's dad doesn't want to take responsibility and what he earns isn't enough for me and his 3 siblings. The turkey vanished from the table as if someone had ripped the heart out of Christmas with their bare hands. My 3 kids looked at me with that face of hunger and confusion that pierces your chest. And my son David, the 18-year-old hero, was already walking out the door with the dinner he himself had bought. Me, pregnant, standing in front of a half-bare tree, I had to swallow the biggest humiliation of my life. If you think this happened just because, take a breath, because what happened before explains everything. I'm Sylvia, a mother of 4 with another baby on the way. And if it bothers anyone to read that, they can cover their eyes, because that's my reality. I don't have the luxury of living lightly. David, my oldest son at 18, is the only one who works and the only one who can truly help me, because the father of the baby I'm expecting decided that fatherhood is optional. And before you come at me with speeches like, well, don't get pregnant, I'll tell you something. Life doesn't stop for you to plan things nicely. Life crashes down on you and you do what you can. I didn't get pregnant to annoy anyone. I got pregnant because I still had hope that things could turn out well. And when that hope died, I had to turn shame into a plan because someone had to hold this house together. In my house there are 3 younger children who depend on me for absolutely everything. Food, school supplies, clothes, health, calm. And I, besides being pregnant, have to be a mother, father, psychologist, housekeeper, and a punching bag for others' judgments. David has always been a good son, yes, but he's also young and has that disease of the young. They think the world is fair and that responsibility distributes itself. When I told him I needed him to work overtime, it wasn't to exploit him, it was because reality was exploiting me. It's not like I enjoy asking my own son to carry an adult's weight, but someone has to do it when the men disappear. David gave me that look that kids give when they want to say, it's not my problem, but they feel guilty. I explained it calmly, with numbers, with my growing belly, with the bills, with the list of what's missing in the house. I told him that what he earns isn't enough for me and his 3 siblings, and I don't stretch money like it's gum. And I also told him something that sounds harsh, but it's true. If he lives in this house is also his responsibility. I don't like saying it, it hurts to say it, but nobody asks me if I want to carry the load, I just carry it. December arrived and with December came David's Christmas bonus. That money that for him was his effort, and for me was a breath of fresh air. My head was already full of lists, dinner, gifts, uniforms, medicines, the pregnancy checkup, the bills that pile up when everyone else is celebrating except you. So I was direct. I asked him to give me his entire bonus. Not a little piece, not what he could spare, all of it, because his siblings' Christmas isn't paid for with good intentions. David hesitated, you could see it, but in the end he gave in out of pity for the kids and because deep down he knows that without him, I'm left alone against a mountain. I'm not a thief, I'm a mother. And being a mother means that sometimes your face looks hard, because if you don't get tough, nobody takes you seriously. When David gave me the money, I felt relief, but also extra pressure. Now I couldn't fail. Now I had to work magic to make everything look nice, because that's another thing nobody understands. If the house looks sad, people blame the mother. If the mother looks sad, people call her dramatic. So yes, I wanted Christmas to look like Christmas, even if I was breaking apart inside. And that's where everyone acts like saints with me, as if I have no right to anything. I was pregnant, with my body changing, feeling huge, uncomfortable, with clothes that didn't fit and my self-esteem on the floor. While other women look in the mirror and feel supported, I looked at myself and felt abandoned, as if life had left me with no backup. So I thought, if I'm going to be alone anyway, at least I'm going to look good. Not for vanity, but for dignity, because there are women who die inside if they don't recognize themselves on the outside. I bought nice maternity clothes. Yes, luxury, if you want to call it that, because cheap clothes lose their shape and make you feel worse. I bought things that fit me well, that made me feel like a woman and not just an incubator with dark circles under her eyes. And I also decided to do a Christmas photo shoot for myself alone, because I needed a memory where I wasn't the shadow behind everyone else. I took pictures with the tree with lights, with my belly, with a smile I had to sweat to create. And no, I didn't do it to humiliate my children. I did it because I exist too, even if it makes everyone uncomfortable. When dinner time came, everything got complicated faster than I expected, because the money disappeared like water when you have holes everywhere. A purchase here, another there, one necessary thing, another thing to make myself feel better. And I still thought I was going to solve it, that I'd make up the difference with creativity, that I could make a humble but decent Christmas. But the gifts remained an intention, and the food ended up being the basics, leftovers, whatever was available. My younger kids asked about their toys with that innocent hope that breaks you. And David started to look around with a silent rage. On Christmas Eve, David arrived and saw what I knew he would see. A nearly empty tree, kids without gifts, and food that didn't look like dinner. And instead of understanding the context, the first thing he did was look at me as if I were a fraud. He asked me what had happened to the bonus, with that auditor's tone, as if I were his employee. I told him it was spent on necessities, that I was pregnant, that the house doesn't run on air, but he had already seen the bags, he had noticed the new clothes, he already had the puzzle put together in his head. Then came the humiliation. David saw the turkey he bought with his money to save the dinner. Because yes, he had bought the turkey and I thanked him for it, although he did it with that "I'm the adult here" energy. He started to call me out in front of his siblings as if I were an irresponsible teenager. Me with the belly, with the exhaustion, with the weight of years on my back, I exploded and reminded him that if I weren't strong, he wouldn't even have a roof over his head. And he, instead of lowering his voice, did what children do when they feel morally superior. He punished me. David took the dinner turkey, grabbed it as if it were evidence, and took it to a friend's house. Just like that, leaving me with 3 children staring at the empty table. In that instant, I felt a mix of fury and betrayal, because he didn't just take food from me, he took my authority in front of his siblings. The younger kids started asking about dinner, why David left, why there were no gifts. And I was left empty-handed. And the worst part was that David left thinking he was a hero while I was left doing damage control with hungry children. Comments from the main story. Anonymous user 1 says, Sylvia, you're not stretching money, you're using your son. You took his entire bonus and spent it on luxury clothes and a photo shoot just for you. Then you play the martyr when he takes the turkey that he bought. It's not humiliation, it's a consequence. You stole Christmas from your children for your vanity. OP's reply. Steal. What an easy word to use when you're not dealing with a pregnancy and 3 kids asking for things you can't invent. I didn't spend the money on whims, I spent it on keeping myself standing because a broken mother can't support anyone. And if David thinks he can discipline me by taking food away in front of the children, then the problem isn't me, it's his lack of respect. I've carried this family alone too many times for someone to now call me a thief for buying myself a little dignity. Anonymous user 2 says, your dignity doesn't feed your children, Sylvia. If there were no gifts and they were eating leftovers, it's because you decided to prioritize your image, and on top of that you're making an 18-year-old boy work overtime to pay for your decisions and a pregnancy he's not responsible for. You're the type of mother who later wonders why her children leave and never come back. OP's reply. People like you think a mother should disappear and become a piece of furniture to be a good one. David isn't a child. He lives in this house and benefits from me breaking my back for everyone, so yes, it's his turn to contribute. I didn't choose to be alone in this, I was left alone. And when you're left alone, you do whatever it takes so your children don't sink with you. If a photo shoot seems worse to you than an absent father, then your moral compass is seriously warped. Update 1. That night, after David took the turkey, I was left with the younger kids staring at the table as if it were a cruel joke. It wasn't just the hunger, it was the feeling of being exposed as a bad mother, as ridiculous, as incapable, right on a day when everyone else shows off their perfect families. The kids asked about David every 5 minutes, they asked why he left, they asked about the turkey, they asked about their gifts. And me, pregnant, with my heavy body and my head on fire, I had to improvise smiles while my world was falling apart. Outside people were setting off fireworks and inside I felt like I was being buried alive. I tried to do what I could with the little I had. Reheated rice, leftovers, some bread, whatever I could find. But kids aren't stupid. They feel when something is missing and they feel when someone has left angry. I told them David was with friends, that he'd be back later, not to worry, even though inside I was boiling that he would do this to me. Because yes, he can be mad at me, but punishing his siblings by taking their dinner is cruel. And that cruelty lit the most dangerous spark in me, the need to reclaim the narrative. So I did what anyone would do when they're being painted as the villain. I told my side of the story. First, I opened Facebook, took a crying picture in front of the half-empty tree with the kids in the background and the silent house. I wrote one of those super long posts you write when you're on the edge, that my oldest son ruined my Christmas, that he stole his little sibling's food, that he left me alone and pregnant. I didn't exaggerate, that's what happened. People don't understand nuances, so I made them understand the image. A destroyed mother and a selfish son. The post went viral quickly because people love to get outraged by family stories. Comments of support came in, women telling me that sons no longer have respect, people offering words, some even shared it. And for the first time that night I felt I wasn't alone. Because sometimes the only thing you need to keep from falling is for someone to tell you you're not crazy. David wasn't answering, but I knew he'd see it and I knew it would hurt him. But as always, life doesn't let me win even once. One of David's aunts appeared in the comments, one of those family members who think they're moral judges because they live in comfort. She commented publicly with a venomous coldness that I was lying and that the bonus money went to luxury maternity clothes and a photo shoot. And the worst part, she uploaded photos of receipts, of proof, of whatever she had, as if she were exposing a crime. That's when the post turned on me like a pancake and people started changing sides in real time. Suddenly, my crying picture was no longer, poor Sylvia, it was look at her acting. People started saying I had scammed my son, that I had used the children as a shield, that I was the Grinch mother. They started demanding explanations as if they were the prosecution, and I was left staring at the screen with the feeling of being stripped naked in the public square. Because it's one thing for your son to question you at home, and another for your own family to burn you publicly. Comments from the update. 1. Anonymous user 1 says, "Your little game backfired, Sylvia. You wanted to play the victim with a crying photo, but your own family debunked you with receipts. If your argument was there wasn't enough for gifts, why did you buy luxury clothes and pay for a photo shoot just for you? You used your kids as props for a viral post. That's some real Grinch behavior." OP's reply. How easy to talk about a game when you don't have 3 kids looking at you with hunger and a son who takes your dinner out of pride. I posted because I was desperate and because David humiliated me in front of everyone, including his little siblings. And yes, I bought things for myself because I'm pregnant too, and I also have the right to feel human, not just a machine for giving birth and serving. The fact that my aunt wants to show receipts doesn't make her a saint. It makes her a nosy and cruel person at a time when I needed support, not an inquisition. Anonymous user 2 says, "The most toxic thing isn't the clothes, it's the post. You portrayed your son as a thief in front of the whole world when the turkey was his. Are you really surprised that nobody believes you now? You burned the relationship for likes and validation, and the kids are caught in the middle watching their mom create public drama." OP's reply. My son took the dinner that was meant for his little siblings. No matter how you look at it, that's a selfish and punishing act. I didn't post for likes, I posted because I was being left alone and I needed someone to see what was happening. If you're all so worried about privacy, you should also be worried about abandonment and how an older son thinks he has the right to humiliate his mother. The kids are in the middle because David decided to make a spectacle, not because I decided to defend myself. Update 2. When I saw that the post wasn't mine anymore, that it had become a tribunal, a nasty panic set in, the kind that makes you think fast and badly. It wasn't just what people would say, it was the real fear of being left without a safety net, because if my family turned on me, who was going to help me with the kids? Who was going to help me with a pregnancy alone? David was already with friends eating turkey as if nothing had happened, while I was at home counting leftovers and receiving insults on the internet. And that's when I understood something terrible. If I didn't regain support, I'd be isolated, and isolation is what kills a mother. So I did what a cornered woman does when no one listens to her. I went straight for pity. I sent audio messages to the grandparents, David's parents, because they've always had that poor Sylvia, weak spot. Put up with her because she's the mom. In the audios I said that David had gotten aggressive, that he had pushed me, that he had hit me and had run away. I said I was scared, pregnant, alone with the kids, and that I needed them to transfer me money to get through the night and buy food. I didn't say it with joy. I said it with that broken voice that comes out when you feel no one will help you unless you dramatize enough. I was sure the grandparents would spring into action because grandparents always react when they hear pregnant and hit. But I didn't count on the most humiliating detail of all. The grandparents were with David at another Christmas party. And my audio, my great resource, was heard on speakerphone in front of everyone, as if I had put the noose around my own neck. There, in real time, my lie stopped being a private strategy and became a public scandal. Comments from Update 2. Anonymous User 1 says, "Did you really send an audio saying your son hit you so they would transfer you money? That's not seeking support, that's trying to destroy an 18-year-old's life out of pride. And the worst part is it didn't even work. It was heard on speakerphone and you were exposed as a liar in front of the whole family. That pregnancy doesn't give you permission to invent violence to manipulate the grandparents." OP's reply: "You people talk as if I have time to sit and philosophize when I have 3 kids and a belly to deal with. I was desperate. And when you're desperate, you say whatever it takes to get a reaction, because people only move for drama. David left me without dinner and burned me publicly. I needed an immediate safety net, not a slow-motion moral trial. And if you're so worried about David's life, you should be worried about mine, because I'm the one being left alone." Anonymous User 2 says, "It wasn't a strategy, it was a false accusation. If someone at that party had called the police because of your audio, David would have been marked for life. All because you couldn't accept that you spent the bonus on yourself and got caught. You're not cornered by life, Sylvia. You're cornered by your own decisions." OP's reply: "How easy to say false accusation from the comfort of not living my situation. I wasn't trying to mark him. I was trying to get the family to take the abandonment they made me feel seriously. When they take away your support on such a symbolic night, your mind goes into survival mode, not university ethics mode. My decisions are born from the pressure you don't see. You only see the result and feel superior." Update 3. When I heard my grandparents play the audio on speaker at that other party, I knew it immediately from the silence that followed. It wasn't a "how serious" silence, it was a silence of collective shame, like when someone exposes themselves. I started getting messages from relatives who never write to me, but who suddenly had time to judge me. Some told me, "How could you say that?" Others, "You're sick." Others simply left me on read, which is the modern way of kicking you out. I tried to fix it, of course. I said it was misunderstood, that I exaggerated because I was nervous, that David yelled at me and I got scared. But it was too late. When a family decides you're the villain, any explanation sounds like an excuse. And the worst part is that David now had something I hate back up. He was surrounded by people, eating, laughing, being the good son, while I was stuck in my house with kids and resentment. December 25th dawned with a strange heaviness, as if the house were colder than usual. The younger kids didn't look at me the same way anymore. They didn't shout, they didn't cry, worse, they were quiet. That childish silence is poison because it makes you feel like you're no longer in charge, that they no longer believe you, that they no longer admire you. They asked about David without asking me, as if I were an obstacle and he were the solution. I wasn't going to let David become the ultimate hero inside my own house, because if they elevated him, I would be the bad guy forever, and a mother can't rule with that label. So I did what I had to do to teach them an emotional lesson. Even if it sounds ugly, I took away the old so they would understand what things cost. I grabbed the old toys, the ones that were already broken, dirty, ugly, and started breaking them in front of them. I told them the Grinch was taking them because David was bad, because David ruined Christmas, because David left with the dinner. It wasn't out of cruelty, it was for pedagogical reasons. They needed to associate the loss with the real culprit. Yes, they cried, of course they cried, but sometimes crying teaches more than a speech. I was convinced that with this they would understand that you don't idolize the one who abandons you. What I didn't count on, because in my house no one told me anything anymore, is that one of the kids recorded everything on his phone. He recorded me breaking toys. He recorded me saying the thing about the Grinch. He recorded me in that moment where emotion took over, and that video, instead of staying a family tantrum, went straight to David. When I realized, I felt a punch in the stomach because I had just given David the perfect proof to paint me as a monster. Comments from Update 3. Anonymous User 1 says, "You broke your kids' toys to manipulate them against their brother. That's not pedagogy, Sylvia. That's emotional abuse with a Christmas theme. And you justify it by saying you were teaching. You taught fear, not values. That video is exactly what you deserve. Evidence of who you are when your plan fails." OP's reply. You people call anything that isn't a coddled upbringing abuse. My kids don't live in a bubble. They live in a house where an older brother decided to leave and leave them without dinner. I was trying to make them understand reality. Actions have consequences, and you don't betray your family. If a broken toy moves you more than an abandoned mother, then your empathy is on clearance. Anonymous User 2 says, "The Grinch thing is the lowest. You use the kids as soldiers in your war with David because you can't stand losing control. You're using the pregnancy as an excuse to be aggressive and then ask for compassion. They're not isolating you. They're protecting themselves from you doing more harm." OP's reply. How easy to say protecting when what they're doing is leaving me alone with all the weight. I'm not at war for fun. I was pushed to defend my place as a mother against a son who wants to be the boss. My kids need a firm figure, not a parade of people who confuse them and turn them against me. And yes, I'm pregnant, and that means my stress is not a game. My body pays for this too. Update 4. That same day, the 25th, the tension became unbearable because it wasn't just the internet or extended family anymore. It was the house itself turning against me. The younger kids were cold with me. They answered in monosyllables. They looked at me as if I were the villain in a story. I tried to make them eat. I tried to play. I tried to talk. But everything I said sounded fake, even to me. And when a mother loses emotional respect inside her own home, the only thing left is physical control of the space. In the afternoon, I heard a car engine and my heart sped up. It was David, and he didn't come back to talk. He came back with determination, as if he already had everyone's permission. He came in and didn't even greet me properly. He went straight to saying he was there to pick up his siblings. I saw it in his eyes. He was no longer a son arguing. He was an improvised adult coming to the rescue. I felt truly cornered because that moment was the finish line. If David took the kids, I'd be left alone, humiliated, defeated, and pregnant with the empty house as my sentence. I told him he had no right, that it was my house, that they were my kids, that he wasn't going to turn this into an emotional kidnapping. He answered me with that calm superiority he learned from my own family, that it was for their well-being, that they weren't okay with me. I saw that I wasn't going to win with words, so I went to the only place where I could still create a blockade, the bathroom. I locked myself in with the house keys because if he was going to play savior, I was going to force him to feel the real weight of what he was doing. I yelled from inside that if he took the kids, I was going to do something crazy, that I was pregnant, that he shouldn't push me to the limit. I'm not going to describe anything because it's not theater. It's the kind of threat that comes out when they're tearing away the little you have left. David started banging on the door and asking me to come out, but I was already spiraling. I yelled at them that they were destroying me, that they were leaving me alone, that this was violence against a pregnant woman. And in my head it felt logical. If you wanted to take my kids, I had the right to use my pregnancy as a shield, because a pregnancy isn't an accessory, it's real vulnerability. I expected the kids to cry and stay, for David to get scared and back down, for everything to freeze. But then came the flaw that finished me off. I forgot that the back door didn't lock properly. While I was locked in the bathroom playing my last card, the children silently opened the back door and ran out. I heard footsteps, I heard a distant door slam, and then a strange, final silence. When I realized what had happened, my body went cold. My kids were already running to David's car without looking back. Comments from Update 4. Anonymous User 1 says, Threatening to harm yourself so they don't take the kids is extreme manipulation. That's not desperation, Sylvia. That's emotional blackmail with your pregnancy as a weapon. And the fact that the kids ran out the back door says it all. They're afraid of you. It's not that David rescued them. It's that they rescued themselves from you. OP's reply. Fear is a huge word for people who don't know what it's like to lose your footing in a single day. I wasn't acting, I was collapsing because they were making decisions for me as if I were an obstacle. When they try to take your children, your body goes into panic, and that panic doesn't look pretty or correct. If the kids ran, it was because David confused them and turned them against me from the very first minute. Anonymous user 2 says, your last card could have ended very badly. Using threats to keep children is the same thing an abuser does to maintain control. It doesn't matter how many times you say pregnant, that doesn't make you untouchable. The healthiest thing David did was get them out of there. OP's reply. You people love to label a desperate mother as an abuser because that way you don't feel guilty abandoning her. David didn't get anyone out, he took them, taking advantage of the fact that the entire family inflated his ego and armed him with backup. I'm not untouchable, but I'm not an object you can take everything from and then say, it's for your own good. If this were the other way around and a man did the same thing, you'd be talking about rights, not punishments. Update 5. When I came out of the bathroom, the house wasn't a house anymore, it was an echo. The kids' backpacks were gone, some shoes were missing, the living room was a mess like after a hurricane. I stood there, breathing strangely, with my heavy belly, looking at a tree that didn't even look like Christmas anymore. For the first time in years there were no children's voices, no complaints, no nothing that forced me to move. And that absence that people sometimes dream of, it fell on me like a sentence. I grabbed my phone looking for something, anything, a call, a message, and are you okay? But what I found was worse. Silence and blocks. Relatives who always have an opinion, now disappeared. Family groups where I could no longer write. I tried calling the grandparents and they didn't answer. I tried writing to an aunt and saw the frozen double checkmark. It wasn't just loneliness, it was social expulsion. And then came the final humiliation, the one you can't control, my photo shoot. Those photos I took to feel alive, to feel like a woman, to hold myself up, appeared everywhere as a meme. People shared them with horrible captions. The Grinch mother, when you eat the Christmas bonus and then cry on Facebook. My face, my belly, my tree, my forced smile, turned into a public joke. It was as if the whole world had decided I was a character and not a person. I tried to defend myself, but how do you defend yourself when they've already taken away your right to be believed? Anything I said sounded like an excuse, and any tear I shed sounded like an act. I realized that in this story I no longer had a buyable audience, not even a manipulable one. The real punishment wasn't the meme, it was realizing that no one was ever going to take me seriously again, not for my pregnancy, not for my kids, not for my version of the story. The days passed and the holidays went on without me. I wasn't invited to anything, I wasn't asked anything. They didn't even send me a picture of the kids opening gifts with David. I found out through third parties, from other people's stories, from that kind of information that comes at you like a slow knife. And I stayed in my house cleaning alone, eating whatever, trying to convince myself that this was temporary, but every new block told me the opposite. In the end, I realized I was going to spend the rest of my pregnancy without family, without celebrations, without a safety net. David became the official hero, and I became the official monster. And you can't remove that label with willpower. My house was left empty, and for the first time I understood what it means for them to outlive you. It's not that you die, it's that they erase you. And in the middle of that silent house, with my belly growing, the only thing I had left was my own version, even if no one wanted to hear it anymore. Comments from Update 5. Anonymous User 1 says, your ending isn't a tragedy, it's an accumulated consequence. You took your son's bonus, you lied, you manipulated the family, you made false accusations, you broke toys, and you blackmailed with threats. They didn't erase you. They protected themselves and the children from your chaos. The Grinch mother meme is cruel, yes, but your behavior was crueler than any joke. OP's reply. You people repeat consequence as if life were a manual and mothers weren't human. I did what I did because no one was going to save me and because the pressure made me explode from the inside. If my family were really protecting themselves, they would also be concerned about a pregnant woman who's all alone, not just about their favorite narrative. And about the kids, I love them, even if they want to turn me into a cartoon villain to feel morally clean. Anonymous User 2 says, "The saddest part is that you still don't get it. You keep talking about your version when the problem wasn't how they interpreted you, but what you did. You were left alone because you used everyone as a tool, David as a wallet, your kids as a shield, your family as an ATM. I hope you use this loneliness to change, because if you don't, the baby that's coming will be the next hostage." OP's reply. How convenient to say, "I hope you change," while you spit on me and condemn me as if you were a judge. I didn't use anyone. I held up what I could with what I had, and when it all came crashing down on me, I reacted as best I could. The baby that's coming isn't anyone's hostage. He's my son, and I'm going to raise him, even if the world points at me with memes. If you think a mother only deserves support when she behaves perfectly, then you don't want mothers, you want silent robots.